welcome everyone. We are here today from Northern California and Canada today with Jennifer Greggain, who is the recipient of the LPGA Western Section Teacher of the Year Award. And we're here to learn a little bit more about her. And with no further ado, how are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I just wanted to thank our section for nominating and selecting me up here in Canada. That's a huge honor, and I am just very honored and proud to receive that award this year.
Yes. Yes, there was a few women nominated this year, and I think it was a pretty tough category to win. So we have a lot of outstanding professionals in our section, so very well deserved honor. This golf season is kind of winding down a little bit here, even though the weather is quite nice. What about for you?
Yeah, the weather definitely plays a factor into what's going on up here. I'm very fortunate that I do have an indoor-outdoor training facility, so I'm able to teach year-round. We get a little bit of snow, very similar to a typical Northwest type season, so we very rarely go below freezing, but things do wind down a little bit and kind of change gears a little for us as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I heard, so you were taking initiative to that indoor facility or the academy that you have. Can you tell us a little bit about the name of it? I always butcher the name, so I want you to say
it. I live in Chilliwack, British Columbia, which is about an hour east of Vancouver, British Columbia.
It's such a great name.
It is awesome. Well, yeah, don't worry about pronouncing it. It's fine. But yeah, I have lived in Chilliwack since 2003 and dabbled in the tour life as I lived here, and always thought that wouldn't it be great to have a really awesome training facility here in my hometown of Chilliwack. And so when I started teaching and instructing, the director of instruction position came up at my local club. That was a first time offered position. We hadn't had that before. I applied for the position and submitted a 20-page business proposal on how we were going to build this awesome training facility in Canada. And I was very fortunate to be selected to head up that program, and I received the director of instruction position. And so all of a sudden, here we are, you know, in the construction phase of building the academy. 6 months later, it was built, and we are now running, you know, full force for the last 3 years.
That's
so yeah,
awesome.
It's great.
Congratulations. Yeah. That's a really great achievement, because I know growing up in Sweden, I know how important it is to have those kinds of facilities to be able to train, at least to do, at least in Sweden where I grew up, we used to do a lot of technique training during the winter. And that's, if you have an indoor academy, it's so great to be able to offer that.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and we were actually fortunate enough to partnership with the local university, which is called the University of Fraser Valley golf team, and they actually helped supply a lot of our equipment. So I was fortunate enough to receive a flight scope, all of my V1 video stuff, my cameras, all my screens. We have a SAM putt lab, and it was a really good partnership for us to work together. So we're able to offer some training facility and time for their team, and in exchange we can kind of share the equipment. So that's been a really, really good setup.
Okay, yeah. That sounds pretty awesome. Did you also have donations to help build the academy, and how was that financed? Because I know for a lot of clubs, that's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, so when I submitted my business proposal, I was very thorough in budgeting and even just researching my market, and just kind of looking at lesson sales in the past and how much we could project into the future, and just really make good sense financially. But we did receive some help from our membership. That was really huge, actually. So our contractor, for example, was a member, and he donated his time to the project. So that was huge. A lot of the building supplies that were offered were, you know, donated by members. So it definitely took a full team to make this happen. And, you know, for a few months there, a lot of, you know, my time for sure, just kind of overseeing everything. But also just, it took a village, you know, it took the whole membership, and we just kind of all worked together and made that happen. So it was a really cool project. You know, you always look back and you think, oh, you know, maybe I could have done it a little bit differently, you know, but for the first time, it turned out really great.
Yeah, that sounds really good. All right, so let's kind of go back a little bit. So I remember you from the Futures Tour.
That's where we first met, yes.
Yeah, that's a few moons ago now. Bring us back a little bit. I know you have a pretty expensive background playing golf, both on an amateur level in Canada, through the Futures Tour, which is now the Symetra Tour, but also on the LPGA Tour. I know you played in a couple of US Opens. How did you get started in golf?
Oh, okay. That's a big question. I first started playing golf with my father, who passed away 3 years ago, and he was the person to introduce it to me. And I was very athletic growing up, and as we all know who play golf, it's such a difficult game to really excel at, and I was just addicted right from the very beginning to, you know, just be the best that I can be at this game. And we all know that it's this process that we're always trying to figure out, and it's just a constant journey that just happens over your entire lifetime. So you never have it completely figured out. But after playing for a few years on tour, I retired from the LPGA Tour. I had 2 years of non-exempt status in 2005 and 2008. And then I decided shortly after that in 2008, my kids were starting to get a little bit older. So they wanted to do some normal things like play on soccer teams and go to school and things like that. So I said, okay, I'm ready for a change. Let's change the pace a little bit. So I started teaching and pursued my LPGA TNCP status, and that was one of the best things I've ever done. It's a completely different career in golf, but I just couldn't see myself doing anything else, and I wasn't entirely sure I was going to be a good teacher at golf. You know, it's completely different to play golf as it is to teach. So I wasn't sure at first, but I had some really awesome students my first year who gave me some great feedback and said, hey, you've really helped me. I really appreciate how you've done that. And so it was some really good motivation to keep going and continue and just pursue golf as a career in a different way. And, you know, I say now that when I have a student come and tell me, or a player come and tell me that, hey, you really helped me, I just feel like that's winning. That's like winning a golf tournament to me now. You know, you just define success differently, and it's not good or bad. It's just different. And I just find it very fulfilling and very satisfying at this part of my career.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it could be very tricky, you know, that transition from being a player and having all that focus being on you, and then shift that completely into helping others. And sometimes I think that could be very challenging. And I remember for myself when I was going through that, you know, from player, I really I wasn't that excited about golf after I stopped playing, and I really wasn't sure if I was going to be a teacher either. So I can definitely relate to like what you went through, kind of thinking, I don't know if this is going to be for me.
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, I've just really enjoyed, you know, every day. I still feel like I learn something new every day. You know, I've always felt that way about golf, and I still feel that way about golf. Even when I'm on the lesson tee, I feel every time I go home, hey, I learned something new today. And I find that really fulfilling in my career for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Are there days when you wish you would have had some of the knowledge you have now when you were actually a player?
Oh, definitely. Actually, I think you and I talked about this a few weeks ago in Las Vegas. I wish I had some of the technology back then, for sure.
Yeah. Give us an
Yeah.
example. I'm really curious to hear.
Flight scope for sure. I wish I had that technology back when I played. I think, that's a really helpful thing to have. And then even going back to your question, just you kind of learn something on a different level when you start teaching and coaching other people in those things. Like I still play a handful of events now and then, and I can hear myself, standing over a shot, how I would coach a player through this, even though I might be making those exact same mental mistakes that they're making.
Yeah.
So then I can just go back and think, no, you know this, you can do this. Come on, let's do it. So it definitely helps me now. And as all of us are teaching now, we know we don't have as much time to spend on our game. So that has really taught me something as well. I almost feel like my mental game is even better than it was when I played full time. Now I don't have that luxury of being, well tuned in my practice or my technique. So we know we have to be really good at our mental game to make up for that. And it's really fun to play in events now and kind of look back on some of the experience that you had when you did play, but also now that experience that you have as a teacher and as a coach, just to kind of help yourself through hitting some of those shots or some of those situations. So that's a good question.
Yeah, really cool. What would you say specifically for your own game? What do you think you would have been able to take away from using something like a flight scope? And for those of you who are not familiar with flight scope, it's a radar device that can give you ball and club dynamics. And it also give you the distance that you're hitting the golf ball. So, as a professional player, how far you're hitting the ball is obviously a crucial ingredient to scoring. So what would you say for you that you would have really taken away from that?
Well, I could answer that several ways, but the one that really comes to mind for me is how to curve the golf ball properly. I had always been one of those players who could really only curve the golf ball one way. And
which way was that for you?
Oh, right to left, so a draw.
Yep, me too.
On bad days, it was more like a hook. So, fading a golf ball was really not something I tried to do very often. And now that what I know about path and face and all of those components shaping a golf ball, I am now able to do that. And I'm thinking, wow, if I had been able to do that back then, it would have been very different. But I love being able to go to a golf course and just hit different kinds of shots. And I didn't feel like I could do that before. And I definitely feel like you can do that better now. So
yeah.
It would have been good. It would have been good to have that back then, but I'm having just as much fun with it, coaching other players through it. And it's been a really cool journey and venture with that.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I know in the news media, there's been a lot of criticism really about using some of these technologies. And for me, I believe that, the more feedback you can have when you are training and trying to be a better player, I think the more progress you're going to make. And I think also at a quicker pace, because if you can match how something feels to what's actually happening, I do believe that you can make some really great progress in a pretty short period of time that I think was, almost impossible, before. I just had to kind of guess.
I would definitely have been one of those students who would be receiving a lesson, and if you would have told me, okay, you need to swing in this direction and make the ball curve that way, I would have said, no way, I don't believe you. It just doesn't feel right. This isn't quite right. And a session or two in the flight scope that really opened my eyes, and I've now had those experiences with students, where, okay, I know this feels a certain way, but here's what the numbers are saying. And they're always shocked. I jokingly call it flight scope intervention. Oh,
I love that.
So, okay, you some intervention here because you hook or you fade or slice the golf ball, and this is the reason why. And I know it doesn't feel that way, but this is what's happening. And seeing that eye-opening experience and sharing that with a student, it just gives me goosebumps. I just love doing that, and going home at the end of the day and feel like, yeah, we nailed that lesson today. So that's always a good feeling for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great way of thinking of it. Because a lot of times students will come and say, oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. And I would say sometimes they do know what they're doing wrong, but they cannot fix it. But sometimes it's something completely different too.
For sure.
And that's where I feel like, okay, this is where the launch monitor can really help.
Yes. And honestly, going back to that original question you asked me about, the controversy about that, I don't use it every lesson every day. Right. There's so much to coaching. That's only one small piece of the pie to it. And I think that's where there is some validity to that look on it. But it sure is, it's a great tool. And you have to look at it as a tool, right? It's not, it's not the
end all and be all, of course. There's so many different facets to the game, not just the technique.
For sure. And I'm pretty careful about when I would bring up, a situation like that, like this time of year where we're off season here in Canada. So we're having more of those types of conversations now, but you could use a flight scope, not just to talk about technique, like, okay, let's hit a shot. Let's shape a shot here, getting very much into, the right side of the brain and just making it happen. And I think for people who think it's just about numbers or just about technique, I had one student say, oh, I'm a field player, that's not going to work for me. And I said, oh, well, let's just give it a try. And it went great. I mean, you could use it for field players, for, kinesthetic players, for visual players. It doesn't matter. You can find some benefit in some way with it for sure. But like I said, I don't use it every day, all day for every student. It just kind of depends on the situation.
Right. So another question that I get a lot of the time is concerning teaching philosophy. And I think that it's not a question I particularly like, but I do want to ask you who you are influenced by, or who you look up to in the golf world in terms of instruction. Who do you look for when they've written something or come out with a new book? So what are some of the favorite resources and mentors that you've had over the years?
Well, I did play for the University of Washington. So Mary Lou was one of my first major coaches that I ever had. So as I'm now also coaching other players, I look back in my career and I think about, anyone who's played collegiate golf knows it's not an easy walk. And there are times when, your relationship is really great with your coach. Maybe, there's some times where you have to work on a little bit. So I always look back to that time as a player and kind of think about, okay, what was her perspective as a coach when she was dealing with players like myself? So I always kind of reflect on those experiences. So that's definitely something that comes to mind.
And I want to have a side note here for our viewers. Mary Lou Mulfer is the coach at University of Washington, who just last year, for the first time, won the NCAA championship for the school. And I know a couple other players who played for University of Washington. And it's really great that you're bringing up this point about Mary Lou, because she has such a great reputation with all of the players that I know that played there, and now you're saying the same thing. So it just really attests to her coaching abilities and the I think the love for her players, because I could tell that too when I was playing. Whenever I was around her, how much she cared.
Yeah, and she cares about her players, and even just the belief that she has in her players. Looking at this now from a coach's perspective, it's a very different lens. And so, and you appreciate it in a different way now. And even now, as I'm walking through some journeys with some players, I'm thinking back to how, you know, she walked through some situations with her players. And I gotta say, I learned a lot from that, you know, and just reflecting back on that has been really special. And going back to their win, I was watching that on TV, and it brought goosebumps. Like, it was just one of the best things I, you know, was able to witness and see. My mom called me on the phone right after they won, and she's crying and I'm crying, and it was really cool. So yeah, it was great to be part of that program, and especially awesome to have had a chance to play for Mary Lou. I'll never forget it. I never will.
Yeah. What about now when you're looking for your teaching career? Who would you say that you look up to, or who are some of the mentors that helped you along the way?
Let's see. Was a little bit different in Canada, right? So I felt I don't know if isolated is the right word, but I definitely had to reach a little farther than a lot of people did. And so a few people that really influenced my game, I don't know if anyone knows who Jeff Costin is. He teaches out of Semiahmoo in Northern Washington. And so I hear him all the time talking to me. He's not there, but I hear the things that he says to me. And again, looking at that now as a teacher rather than as a player, I learned a lot from him. And I did this one seminar last year. We were talking about coaching, and many of you have probably done this exercise where you have a little sticky note and you're asked to write down a quality or two about the best coach you ever had, not just in golf, but in anything. And then you have to stick it on the wall. And everyone stuck there. Mostly about 99% of the things that were said were not technique related at all. And they were things like they were a good communicator, or that they cared, you know, nothing about the knowledge of the golf swing or the technique, anything about that. So that was really powerful for me. And when I'm thinking about Jeff, he was a really good communicator and made you laugh, and just really cared about his students. And it's definitely something I've taken with me as a teacher. I want to be able to communicate really well with my students. And they've given me feedback that, yeah, that was really good. And some of them even say that was different than other lessons that I've had. And they say that in a good way. And I'm very thankful for that they feel like the instruction they received from an LPGA member was a little bit different that they might have received elsewhere. You know, they understand that I'm creating a relationship with them. You know, we're not just talking about the golf swing. We're going a little bit deeper than that. And it's brought me closer with my students for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. I think for those who, you know, having a coach is really about not just the technique and all of that good stuff, but it's also about the accountability. Like, you know,
Sure.
Here's somebody that cares and that will help you along, but that, you know, you're spending the person that comes to you they spend their money. And part of it is giving them the accountability that they keep going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And some others that I quote all the time, and I have not had a chance to meet them yet, but Pia and Lynn, like, I love their stuff. I have all of their books, and I have not had a chance to go and see them yet. Oh, that's not true. I've seen one seminar. They came out to Vancouver, I would say maybe 5 years ago. But I haven't had a chance to go and do their program yet. That's on my list of things to do. But I've read all of their books, and my copy that I had is scribbled on and highlighted, and I quote their stuff like at least once a lesson. and because I don't believe that golf instruction is just about how to swing a golf club, but also, how to perform. So they've definitely influenced me as a player, but also as a coach. It's very, very relevant to anyone who's learning the game, for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that as well. I just, this last week, I decided that I was going to teach my clinics based on their 8 essential skills.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't know, the 8 essential playing skills are skills that really has nothing to do with a golf swing, but
Yes.
it's really about trust and commitment, how to manage your emotions on the course, so that you can really play your game and enjoy it without having the I don't know, the breakdowns of that side of it.
Yes.
And I do think that over time, these are the skills that actually keep people coming back.
Absolutely.
So I'm starting in a week or two to teach this in my clinics, and I haven't really done that before. I'm really excited to do it.
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I grew up in Sweden, so Pia Nilsson was the coach for the Swedish national team when I was playing there. And it's really amazing how the principles that she's teaching has really, it doesn't get old. It just, it stays right there. It doesn't, and you can keep coming back to it. And I think for me, that's part of why golf is still interesting, and it endures, because once you have that experience of playing professional golf, you kind of have to find a new reason to play a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's not about, okay, well, this notion of, being the best that I could be. Yeah, okay. That was then.
Yeah.
Now it's now, now I think it sounds like you are too, more focused on being the best teacher that you can be.
Yes.
And so when you play golf now, like, what are the things that motivates you to, hit a bucket of balls sometimes after practice, or going to do some chipping, or, what keeps you doing that?
Yeah, well, it's very different now, like I definitely, we all have this problem. We don't have as much time as we used to spend on the practice tee or even on the practice green. So I know even how much more limited and how precious that time is. So I'm very careful about how I practice now. I actually also have done a little bit of coaching in the last few years with our local university team, University of the Fraser Valley. So a little shout out to them. And we have an awesome head coach there. His name is Chris Bertram, and he's also part of the kinesiology program at the school. So it's an awesome resource to come alongside him as a coach, and to hear things like, okay, when you're watching players not practice properly, and okay, let's remind them, what does random practice mean? Especially
so hang on here a second. So when you say that the player isn't practicing properly, well, what does that actually mean?
Well, let's clarify that a little bit. We usually are catching them as they're just kind of going through the motions. And it's, on the putting green, they've got 3 golf balls hitting the same putt in the same way over and over again. And I know we're all guilty of doing this at some point. But it's really crucial to get out of those bad habits, and to come alongside Chris Bertram and, really work with players and help them understand. And at first they don't always buy into it, because they go back to okay, I'm going to go hit balls in the range, and I'm just going to hit, 27 irons and 20 drivers, and, and then I'm going to go home, and that was practice. So I know better than that now. So if I practice, I bring 1 golf ball to the putting green with me. And all right, I'm going to mark my ball, and I'm going to, hit this kind of putt. I have a hard time with left to right putts, so I'm going to hit a left to right putt. I'm going to mark my ball and go through the whole motion of that. So there's definitely a time and a place where we have to remind our players to be doing that, especially at that level. You know, if you got your elite level of player, they need to be practicing in a very specific way. And I joke, but we kind of like catching them when they're maybe not doing that. So, and they kind of look at us and they have this guilty look and they're okay, you know, and then, you know, have the conversation of why this is important. And so that's always really fun. But now I have to make sure that I'm leading a good example in that. If I happen to be spending a few minutes practicing between lessons, that, all right, if this player sees me practicing, I'm gonna make sure we're doing this the right way. But if I have an hour to practice, wow, that's pretty special. Then I have to make sure I use every second of that to the best way I can. And if I'm just hitting the same putt over and over, and hitting, you know, 20 drivers exactly in the same way, I don't know that that's going to make me a better player, and it's definitely not going to make me a better coach. So let's make sure we're taking advantage of that time for sure.
Yeah. Sounds like a different kind of intervention that you got going there.
Oh yeah, practice intervention. Yes, we definitely use that as well. So
that's very
fun.
good. And what can you share with others? You know, what are some of the resources that has helped you really elevate your teaching to become Teacher of the Year? What can you share with others who are, you know, pursuing something like that?
Well, let's see, I hadn't really thought of an answer to that, but let me just, I was never expecting any of that, first of all, you know, and I think you have to think about your motivations if you're doing things to win an award. And I was really shocked to hear that I was nominated. I mean, I was very proud and happy, and like, it was great. But, you know, I do all of these things because I love doing them, you know, and I think if I were to say there's one key element to that, that's got to be it. And then secondly, you got to think outside the box, you know, and I've never been the type of person in golf or career to ever really do something the way someone else does. You know, like, I decided to make my home base in Canada as a tour player, and I'm not actually Canadian, so it's not very many of us who go north of the border, but, you know, I did choose to do that. And so that was not usually what other people did. And even when we decided to settle in, you know, this town outside of Vancouver, you know, I get the question a lot, why don't you live in the city? And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's kind of a no-brainer, because that's where everyone else is doing exactly the same thing, you know. So I decided to do things a little bit differently and shake it up a little, and think outside the box, and took a risk. And I'm proud to say I'm sitting here with my dream job, if I'm allowed to say that. You know, it's,
of course you are.
it's pretty special, and, you know, and to even have other members recognize, you know, the work that we're doing up here. And we've got lots of members working hard in Canada, and it's really cool to see. And as far as resources go, when I first decided I wanted to do this, I called Dana Rader, you know, and because I remember her speech and her talk when she was talking to us in her level 1. She was saying basically how she, you know, worked her way up, and she made this business plan, and it all kind of came together for her. And that really spoke to me. It spoke to me in a really special way. And I thought, hey, you know, I can do that. So one of the things that she said was, have a great business plan, and really invest your time into doing that. And I took that away, and I went home and I did that. And it took a little bit of research. I've never written a business plan before. I don't have a business degree. I had no idea. So I found a little online course that you could take so you can write a business plan. And I did. And so I then gave, when I presented this to our board, they were blown away, and so you have to think outside the box. You can't do what everyone else is doing. And so you can kind of use it as a resource as well. I looked at what the next guy was doing and was like, oh, okay, that's working for them. How can I do my thing a little bit differently, right? And just kind of fill in some niche in there, and it worked out really well. So I kind of pride myself in, I don't do this like everyone else does, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be the exact same academy teaching structure, philosophy as everyone else. So I can't say I really used a resource there other than just kind of staying true to myself and not feeling like I had to do this like everyone else does.
I think what you're saying is really inspiring, because I think that a lot of times we look at other people in the industry and we kind of see what they're doing, and usually it's a kind of about who does the best marketing is who you notice.
Yeah.
So then you kind of think like, oh, that's the only path available to
Right.
becoming successful. So I think what you're saying is really inspiring in terms of like being able to do something pretty special with the Chilliwack Academy that in your neighborhood, really.
Exactly. And it's not going to be exactly the same as it will be, in California or Seattle or even Vancouver. It's going to be a little bit different. And I struggled this at first. I kind of really thought, okay, this person's doing it this way, so I need to make sure I do it like that. And I realized pretty quickly that that's not a recipe for success. There's a few things you have to do. Like you said, the marketing is huge, but as far as what you're offering, it doesn't have to be, there's no mold that is going to be the same for everybody. And I really felt like once we broke free from that a little bit, it was really good. So one of the things that we did was we worked with the local school program, and we created a high school academy here in Chilliwack that students earn high school credits to learn how to play golf. And so we worked with the school board to make sure, so they come for 2 blocks of the day, every day from February until June, and they're earning credits in high school that they will go towards graduation. So that was something a little bit different. There's a few other people who've done something similar. Kathy Stesek up in Canada has done this as well in Abbotsford, and we kind of work together. And it's something that hasn't really been explored that much before, and so we wrote the programs ourselves, and we work together, and we kind of, have different ideas. This past year, we just developed a 3-stage benchmark program in that high school for that academy program. So, this is not something we found from someone else. This was something that we kind of put our experiences together, and we said, okay, well, for example, how can we use Flight Scope to make level benchmarks? Okay, well, let's look at speed numbers, and let's say for level 1 for girls it would be this, and for boys it will be this, and we wrote it, and it was really cool to go through that and not do something that someone else has done. We kind of just made it our own, and that's okay for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. That sounds like an awesome program, and be able to offer that to the local high school. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So that's very neat.
Yeah.
A couple more questions before we wrap up today, but I also wanted to mention I remember reading your resume for the National Teacher of the Year Awards, and it just seems like you've done so much this past year. And then, you know, I know that you have 2 kids and a husband.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious how that works out for you.
Well, you know, it's funny you mentioned that because when you go to start filling out the resume form, well, first of all, I was shocked because I know how many awesome things so many other of our members are doing. And I was just thinking, how on earth am I on the radar for this? And so then I start filling out the resume and I'm like, wow, I had a really busy year. I you forget until you start writing some of those things down. But I think just making sure you're balanced is really key. And it's funny when you write all those things down, you write down all these things that were successful, but there's a whole whack of ones that maybe weren't as successful. So as you do this over some years, you can kind of realize, all right, that thing is working really well. We need to put more time and we need to put more energy into that. Where maybe this other thing that you tried, maybe that wasn't working so well for you, you know, and it was hard for me sometimes to say, okay, I need to ask someone else to do that, or I need to step away from that, and that's okay. So you have to be aware of, you know, where you're putting your energy, you know, and you can get burned out pretty quickly. But you just have to be really good at balancing. I guess that's the only way to put that. And, you know, yeah, I have 2 kids. They're both a little bit older now. My youngest is 15. She's in grade 10. So they're a little bit more independent, which kind of gave me a little bit more time to explore a few different things. But once you've been, you know, doing this for a few years, you can really figure out, okay, this is the things that are working really well. Let's put more energy into that. These are the things that, okay, maybe they're not working as well. I need to do them differently, or have someone else do them, or I'm just not going to do that anymore. And that's really hard for me. I'm a really competitive person, as we all are out there. So for me to say I need to step away from something, that's really hard for me to do. And I'm sure a lot of us have that exact same problem. But in the end, you know, the good things that are good, you know, those are really what keeps you coming back, and helps define what success was, you know. And it's different for me now. It used to be a golf score, but now it's completely different. So
yeah, I hear you. It changes over time for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna end with a few rapid fire questions.
Okay. Just like a game show.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Am I timed on this? Because I'm competitive, right? Okay, no.
Well, you get a point for each question, though.
Okay, perfect.
If you answer them correctly.
Oh, no. Okay, now.
I'm joking. There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
It's only for you.
Okay.
All right. First question. How do you like your coffee?
Oh, in Canada, we have Tim Hortons, and we call them a double-double, which is 2 creams and 2 sugars.
Okay. There you go. Favorite book of all time?
Oh, I'm kind of a sci-fi junkie, actually. So The Lord of the Rings is definitely, I've read it several times. I love it.
I love Lord of the Rings too.
Yeah.
I'm a total sucker for that series.
Yeah.
Favorite player growing up?
Oh, when I was young, I really loved watching Michelle McGann. And what was really cool was I did get a chance to play with her. And that, I don't know if she knew it at the time, but I was freaking out when I got a chance to play with her.
Uh-huh.
And it was something I will never forget.
Yeah, I've met Michelle. She's a pretty cool person.
Yeah.
She used to wear all these like crazy hats. I think she still kind of does, but
actually the event that I did play with her in, I actually also saw her out shopping, and I just kept watching her because she just had this amazing style, and I'm just kind of watching what she's shopping for, and it was actually really funny. She had no idea, so I was probably stalking her and watching her buy, in a department store, and it was kind of funny. But I just think that she had so much class and style, and it was really cool to watch, and really redefined a lot of things about how, the what a tour player looked like and was like back then, and it was really cool to be able to play with her.
Yeah. Favorite club in your bag?
Oh, I just got some new Vokey wedges this year that I just absolutely love. So I would say my 60-degree wedge.
And how much bounce do you have on that one?
Oh, well, I'm the L grind. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it feels like, I call it my scalpel. I
Yeah.
just love how it feels in my hand. I love just, hitting awesome, hit sand shots. So yeah.
Sweet. What does it feel like to tee it up at the U.S. Women's Open?
Okay. I did get a chance to play in 2 U.S. Opens. The kind of funny story, the first one, I happened to have been 7 months pregnant with my daughter. And just by coincidence, I was paired up with another girl who was also, I think she was even further along than I was. And so it was kind of a joke. It was the first group of 5 ever played in the U.S. Open. So that was kind of funny. But
Who did you play with?
oh, her name was Brenda, I think Corey was her name.
Okay.
That was in 2001, so that was a long time ago. But the second time I played, I never made the cut before, and it's kind of a funny story. I was the first alternate, and I actually got in. Dottie Pepper had withdrawn.
Oh.
And I had played okay in the qualifier, and then I played really awful on the Futures Tour for I missed 2 or 3 cuts in a row, and then I got the call that I'm in, and I was playing really bad, and so I was kind of desperate, and went to the range and tried to figure my swing out, and it just wasn't working well. And then I went into a practice round, and I shanked a ball into the grandstand, and I'm thinking, oh no, this is terrible. So that I'll never forget this, and I actually use this story a lot when I'm coaching. When the night before, I'm lying in bed, and I said to myself, you know what? Who cares? If I'm going down, I'm just going to go down hard. I actually probably used a few more colorful words than that. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go to the tee, and I'm just going to wing this. So I did. I just thought about nothing. I said, no, I'm not going to think about anything. I'm just going to go out and hit and whatever. And it was one of the best tournaments I ever played, because I made the cut, and as the first alternate, and it was such a learning experience that I'll never forget. Especially when I get students who are overthinking it, and all right, come on, you don't need to think about all this. Let's just go and play. So.
And you made the cut in that tournament?
I did. I made the cut, and I didn't have LPGA status at the time, and I was first.
Pretty awesome.
So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you were you nervous at all, or how do you remember that teeing off? I can only imagine what it's feeling like to, you shank it in the practice run the day before, and then you have to play.
Well, after knowing that I was playing so bad, I actually wasn't that nervous, thinking that, okay, whatever, I might not play well. Okay, that's just fine. I was actually more nervous on the 18th hole of the second round, knowing if I didn't screw this up, I was going to make the cut.
Yeah.
So I was way more nervous than I was on the first tee, and then you're going back to, okay, you can't think that way. Okay, let's just do this one shot. Okay, let's pick your target. Let's just go. And I made a really cool up and down out of the U.S. Open hay, like the really long stuff, and made the cut. So I'll never forget that. It was really cool. And those are some of the experiences that I draw upon now as a teacher, as a coach. I find almost that experiences like that are my best asset. I can share those stories and what you were feeling, and, you know, like, okay, yeah, you're going to be nervous about this, but let's hit a shot. You know, how are we going to do that? So that it's really cool. And that's probably the most nervous I've ever been in a golf tournament, on the 18th hole of the second round, knowing that I'm going to make the cut as a qualifier. So yeah, good times.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite swing on the LPGA tour currently?
Oh, wow. There are so many. I gotta go. Yeah. Wow. I gotta go with my homegirl, Brooke Henderson. You know, like,
Yeah,
come
my
on.
goodness.
It's so awesome having a Canadian phenom out there that, you know, it's that's a pretty cool thing. We waited a long time for that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she's very impressive. I saw her at the Canadian Open one year, and I'm very impressed with the Canadian program and their focus on long-term athletic development.
Yes.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so favorite swing on the PGA Tour?
Oh, as a coach, I love Adam Scott. Like, it's just so classic, and I watch his swing a lot as a player, as a coach, and, you know, I just got to go with one a classic that I know is great.
Okay, cool. And favorite current player, both tours?
Oh, wow, you're
I'm making you think here. This is a tricky one.
I don't know if I could answer just one. It's just been so fun watching this year, you know, like, I haven't had a chance to watch as much as I should, but, you know, I love watching the majors. I love watching, you know, like the Ryder Cup, Solheim Cup. Those are always really fun. I don't know that I can just choose one like that.
You can give me a couple. It's all right.
Okay. So my favorite player I like to watch, or favorite swing?
Yeah, player overall.
Overall player. Well, I've really enjoyed watching what Dustin Johnson's done. You know, that's pretty cool. Do I have to pick just one?
No, you can go.
As far as the women go, oh gosh, I really don't know if I can choose just one. It's just been so fun watching, and I don't know if I can answer Brooke twice, but just honestly, I love watching what she's doing. Like, it's just so much fun. She's, you know, young player. The coaching background for the Canadians, if you guys aren't familiar, Google the long-term player development program done in Canada, and it'll blow your mind what they're doing. I'm really proud to see the contribution that Canada's done in some of the coaching of players coming up now. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I mean, Brooke is kind of the complete package. I mean, she's got the mental strength. She's small, but she's mindy. She hits the ball far. She's powerful. She's fit. Yeah, she's a good choice.
Yeah. just a classy player, you know, and of anyone who I've talked to, have spent any time with her, that they've all said the same thing. So yeah.
All right, so let's see. I think that's it.
Okay. Did I get a lot of points for my answers?
Yes, you got total of 7.
Okay, perfect.
And you are the winner.
Yay! Awesome. Well, thank you for today, and I think this is a really good way we can get in touch with some players and some coaches and teachers out there. And I just really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much.